What's going on, people? This is Derek J407 here to give you my thoughts and opinions on the New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 Climax Night 1 of this round robin tournament, live from the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas. The first time ever the G1 Climax starts, has its opening night, mind you, in the United States, in what I would call an overall great show. Of course, the opening matches you could almost chalk up to being prelim matches, a bunch of tag matches that don't really mean much other than being previews for upcoming G1 matches, specifically matches in the B block. But once those were out of the way and we got into the A block matches, the show just kicked into a higher gear. Pretty much all of the matches that were advertised for the A block all delivered, including the main event for the first time on American soil, Kazuchika Okada taking on Hiroshi Tanahashi. And of course, before that, we had KENTA and Kota Ibushi in what was probably the match that I was looking forward to the most on the entire show, delivering in a big way. So a lot of really great matches, and including one that took me by surprise. Lance Archer and Will Osprey had a really good match, a match that I think was better than it really had any right to be, but it really impressed me. So a lot of great stuff. We'll just go ahead and get right into it. Like I mentioned before, the opening matches, you had a bunch of tag team matches, a 6-man tag. Not really any of it had much meaning behind it or any real significance other than giving us some previews of some of the upcoming B block matches. But the first one was a standard tag team match. The Gorillas of Destiny, Tonga Loa and Tama Tonga, taking on Sho and Yo of Roppongi 3K. Like I mentioned, just a standard tag team match. The GOD got the win with a super power bomb off the top turnbuckle, so that was the opener. Right after that, we had another tag team match. The team of Shota Umino and Tomohiro Ishii taking on Ren Narita and Jeff Cobb. Of course, Jeff Cobb and Ishii are both in the G1, both in the B block, and I believe they have a match next week on the opening of the B block on Access. I believe it's going to be airing on Access TV as well. It'll be Jeff Cobb taking on Tomohiro Ishii next week on July 13th. So that should be a really good match. We had a little bit of a preview of what these guys can do. You got two bulls who can really go, who are really, really great wrestlers, who were going at it at a few points in this match and even a little bit afterwards. But the team of Cobb and Narita got the win. Of course, Narita and Umino are two young lions who got just a little taste of what it's like to be in there with these top tier New Japan guys, and of course one of them being there to take the fall, which is what happened to poor Shota Umino, who got the Tour of the Islands, or Wrath of the Gods if you're a Lucha Underground fan of Matanza. So Jeff Cobb gets the pinfall win for himself and his team. And like I mentioned before, there was a little bit of a scuffle after the match between himself and Ishii. Nothing major, but they were in each other's faces. So looking forward to seeing that match when it comes up next week. Another preview for a B block matchup was up next, another tag team match. The Bullet Club taking on representatives of the Bullet Club, taking on representatives of the Chaos faction. We had Chase Owens and Switchblade Jay White taking on the team of Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto. Of course, I believe this is Hiroki Goto's first, or maybe is it his first time in the G1? I believe it is. If it's not, it's like very few times he's been in it before. But he's set to take on Jay White next week, so we got a little bit of a preview of that. Or not really, because Jay White tried to avoid Goto every chance he got in this match. So we didn't really get a whole lot of mix up between those two, but of course we'll get that on full display next week. But so White, or the most hated man in New Japan, according to Rocky Romero on commentary. Of course, commentary team being Rocky Romero and Kevin Kelly, who did a great job as always. These are two guys who I believe they called the entire G1 last year, and they did a great job. And on this show, they did a really a good job too. But like I said, another standard tag team match. The Chaos faction won. Goto hit his GTR move on Chase Owens to get the win for himself and Yoshihashi. And then we had a 6-man tag team match. The representatives of Los Ingobernables de Japón, Bushi, Shingo Takagi, and Tetsuya Naito, taking on Toru Yano, Juice Robinson, and the legendary Jushin Thunder Liger. Easily the biggest pops in this entire, up to this point on the entire show, went to Jushin Thunder Liger and Naito, with the edge leaning more towards Liger in terms of the ovation they got when they made their entrance and came out to the crowd, in front of the crowd. I think Liger edged out Naito just a little bit, and he definitely did during the match, because anytime Naito and the LIJ crew were doing any of their heel antics or their tranquilo or whatever they were doing on Liger, they would get booed. This crowd did not particularly like anytime they were getting on Jushin Liger. And I have to mention the crowd, because the crowd was really great. It was a great, strong crowd, but I gotta, point out the fact that it was a little distracting that the show did not exactly sell out. So there were some very noticeable empty sections, particularly behind the entranceway, like the way the arena was set up with the stage and all that kind of stuff, right behind the big screen and all that kind of stuff. There were, like, on each side there were 2 sections of rows of seats that were completely empty, and at different points the hard camera or whatever main camera was facing the wrestlers would focus on it, and it did get a little distracting at times. But that's what happens sometimes, I guess. Can't always sell out a big arena. I don't think it's too detrimental to New Japan's ability to draw in the United States. They've done a pretty good job of doing that in the past, even without relying on Ring of Honor. But they've done that with the help of the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and those guys, those elite guys, and they're not around anymore. This time last year, they had like the G1 show in the Cow Palace, and they pretty much sold that out. But the main event of that show was Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes, and on that same show, the Young Bucks were there. So I don't want to say that they're suffering without those guys, but this was one show that for some reason they did not announce a main event of Tanahashi and Okada well enough in advance to really be a selling point for this show. But whatever the reason behind it is, the show just did not completely sell out in those empty seats, and I'm sure there were other scattered empty seats around the arena. I saw a couple, but those sections in particular, because they were so prominently featured at different points, it was a little bit distracting. But just wanted to point that out real quick. But yeah, so in this match, the baby faces, I guess, Yano, Juice, and Liger, they got the win. It was behind the referee's back. Yano, you know how he is. He hit a low blow on Bushi and got a roll-up win. So he won for himself, Juice Robinson, and Jushin Thunder Liger. And I believe next week it'll be Yano and Naito in the beginning of the B block. And I think it's going to be Juice Robinson and Shingo Takagi on that very same opener. So should be good. And I wanted to mention the crowd stuff because that carries into what they announced at the midway point of the show here. They're going to have a Fighting Spirit Unleashed tour in the United States. New Japan is this upcoming September. I believe the dates they listed were the 27th, the 28th, and the 29th. And they're going to be in Boston, New York, and Philadelphia. And tickets go on sale July 26th. So it's a big deal. 3 dates, 3 different cities. And I'm sure, the likes of Tanahashi and Okada and Naito and all the other big names, Ibushi, will be on those shows. Maybe not all 3 of them at the same time, but I'm sure they'll be on majority of them. So that's a big deal with them coming over. And it was very interesting. I don't believe they mentioned anything about Ring of Honor. That's not to say Ring of Honor talent won't appear on the show, but it looks like we might be getting to a point now. Maybe this is presumptuous on my part, but it looks like they might be getting towards a direction where they do not always travel along with or have the same shows with the Ring of Honor crew. A lot of New Japan guys are starting to distance themselves from wanting to appear in Ring of Honor. I know Juice Robinson has been a particular talent who has refused, basically. Now, maybe that's an exaggeration. Maybe the stories have been exaggerated on his level of disinterest in competing in Ring of Honor any longer, but he's one of those guys who doesn't want to compete over there anymore, wants to stay exclusively with New Japan. So I don't know if we're going to get to a point where that relationship is going to fade away and a certain all elite company might swoop in as the newer partner with New Japan. Only time will tell. So that leads us to the start of the official start, that is, of the G1 Climax. And the first matchup was Will Ospreay taking on Lance Archer. Like I mentioned, this match turned out to be really, really good. A lot better than I thought it had any right to be. I'm not extremely familiar with Lance Archer or any of his matches, pretty much, so I did not know what kind of opponent he would be for Will Ospreay, but I have to admit, these guys had a damn good match, and Lance Archer really, really impressed me at different points in this match. At one point, Ospreay went for a suicide dive through the ropes, and when he went for it, he got caught in midair by Lance Archer, and he ended up getting chokeslammed over the guardrail through one of the tables over by where the commentators are. So he got chokeslammed through one of those tables. A little bit later on, Archer had Will Ospreay laid out on the ground. They were on the outside, and he dragged him up the ramp towards like the midway point of it. He was about to hit him with a power bomb because he was gonna lay him out, get back to the ring, get a count out win to get some points on the board for himself. So he was going for a power bomb, but then it got reversed. Ospreay ended up hitting a kind of sloppy looking code red, but still a code red nonetheless. So both men were down. They were crawling and fighting their way back to get to the ring to break the count. They both got to the ring. They didn't get inside yet, but they got to the ring. Archer kind of tossed Ospreay to the side, so Ospreay went around the other way. And while Archer was in the ropes getting into the ring, Ospreay came off the top rope with a springboard diving knee right to the back of Archer's head. Then he went up top, hit the shooting star press, thought that was it, but it was only good for a 2 count. He ended up hitting the Os Cutter, which, again, only good for a 2 count, but this was not enough to keep Archer down for too long. He ended up hitting the Muscle Buster and his finisher that he calls the Blackout, but both only got 2 counts for the from the referee. He locked in the Claw. Of course, they're in Texas. He's himself is from Texas, so he locked in the Claw, just grasping and squeezing the life out of Ospreay's head. But Ospreay managed to get out of it. He got to the ropes. They went up top, or he got Ospreay up top, that is. Archer was going for a choke slam, but Ospreay managed to reverse it into a Spanish fly off the top. He goes back up, but Archer tries to fight him back down. He tosses him to the side, But while Osprey is still up there, Archer gets back up, hits him with a very high knee right to the top. He gets up there, right there alongside with him, hits the blackout off of the top turnbuckle, and then locks the claw back in, cinches it in, and then forces him down to get pinned. 1, 2, 3, and Lance Archer is up on the board with some points in the G1. So, a big win for him. I saw some people questioning that and not understanding why the hell did Lance Archer beat Will Ospreay. Well, they're clearly trying to do something with Lance Archer and clearly trying to make him look like a dominant monster and have some sort of credibility in this tournament. Will Ospreay can take the loss. Plus, they even mentioned the fact that Ospreay pinned and beat Lance Archer in the New Japan Cup earlier this year. That was the tournament to determine the number one contender for the championship at the MSG show. And in that tournament, Ospreay beat him there. So it made sense that here in this tournament, Archer's going to get the first win. And it's just one win. That don't mean automatically that Archer's going to go on to the finals, because I highly doubt he will. That just means he has a point. Give him a point on the board. I highly doubt he's going to get a whole lot of them. But then again, you don't know how hard they want to push him. I assume just as much as they would like to position him in a strong fashion, they would like to do the same with Will Ospreay. They'd be insane not to. The void that is needed to be filled with the absence of a Kenny Omega and a Cody and people like that can be filled with someone like Will Ospreay. So positioning him in a higher role in the company, in my opinion, would be a great move. But on this night, after a great match like that, Lance Archer getting the win does not bother me one bit. Up next, another G1 match. Bad Luck Fale taking on Evil. You just got two big dudes kicking each other's asses. That's really all there is to it. Not much else to it other than that. Of the G1 tournament matches, this was probably the weakest, which on paper, looking at the lineup of matches, you'd expect it to be, but it wasn't anything terrible. Evil is really, really good. He's really talented. And of course, Bad Luck Fale, he's been around for a long time. One of the original founding members of the Bullet Club. He's really good too. So you just got two big dudes going at it. At one point, they were both on the outside, and Evil managed, well, I think Fale tried to use the chair first, but Evil managed to kick him away, and he got the chair, and he wrapped it around Fale's head and neck and all that kind of stuff, and drove him into the steel post. A little bit later, they were in the ring, they were brawling around, and the referee ended up getting knocked down. So with the referee down, Evil went to go get the chair. He used the chair on Fale, I think once or twice, but eventually Fale blocked it and gave him, Evil that is, a low blow, used the chair on him, and then hit his move, the Bad Luck Fall, which is basically like the Razor's Edge or a crucifix powerbomb, and got the win. So this win shocked me. I did not expect Evil to lose, but again, got to get these guys some points, and Bad Luck Fale is now up on the board. So a pretty decent match, but like I said, just two bulls going at it. Up next, a fantastic wrestling match between Sabre Jr. and Sanada. Sanada is one guy who a lot of people look at as the future of New Japan. He's been in some really incredible high-profile matches with Okada, especially challenging him for the New Japan or the IWGP Heavyweight Championship at several different points. There was a point last year and even this year when he did it. In fact, the New Japan Cup that I was talking about, I believe the finals, it came down to Okada and Sanada, and that was a great match too. So he's had several opportunities to face Okada. He has not been able to beat him, but he has come very close each time, and he has really impressed a lot of people, myself included. I see bright things in the future of Sanada. Of course, Sabre Jr., a submission specialist. The moves that this guy pulls off, and you could even see it in this match, just how effortless and fluid the movements are, how painful everything looks that he locks in is great. I love watching Sabre Jr. and this match was great. And of course, Sanada in his own right is a great submission specialist. His finisher, the skull end, he tried to lock it in at several points in the match, but of course Sabre Jr. pretty much had a reversal for every single thing he did. One thing Sanada kept trying to do in this match was lock Sabre Jr. in the Paradise Lock, which is basically like the pretzel where he gets all wrapped up and stuff. Every single time he tried to do it, Sabre had a way to get out of it and avoid it, but eventually he got locked in it, and it was in the bottom rope. So he got him locked in it. The crowd popped for it a little bit, and then Sanada hit a baseball slide on him to kick him out of the ring. But what it came down to was Sanada hitting a moonsault into the skull end. So he did a flip off the top into the skull end. He locked him in it. He, was swinging him around and all that kind of stuff. He had him cinched in, but then Sabre Jr. managed to get out of it, and this turned into a series of counters and roll-ups and different variations of roll-ups and all that kind of stuff, to the point where Sanada got the better end of it. He got a bridged roll-up. It's hard to even describe. You gotta seek it out to see it for yourself. Although if you don't have Access TV, I think you're probably gonna have to wait for it to come to New Japan World, probably a couple days or a week or so. I'm not really sure how that works. I have Access TV, so I don't really have to worry about that. But Sanada had this really funky looking roll-up bridge on Sabre and got the win. So a big win for him. This did not sit well with Sabre Jr. He ended up locking the referee in a armbar after the match, and had to get the Young Lions to come in and pull him off him and all that kind of stuff. So he was very angry that he did not get the win here. But like I said, big win for Sanada, and I still see big things ahead of him. Speaking of seeing big things ahead of people, that brings me to the next match. The match that I think I was looking forward to the most on this entire show. Kota Ibushi taking on KENTA, or Hideo Itami, if you only know him from WWE and NXT. And if you only know him from WWE and NXT, you need to do your homework, because this dude was an absolute killer before coming to the WWE 5 years ago in a Ring of Honor and a different promotion in Japan, all over the world. KENTA was looked at as one of the best wrestlers in the entire world, and the story going into this match was 5 years in WWE, NXT, all that kind of stuff, all the injuries and setbacks and all that kind of stuff, all the bad luck that plagued this guy. Is there anything left? Is the KENTA of old still in there somewhere? Does he still have what it takes to compete on a high level like you are required to be able to compete at in New Japan, specifically in the G1 Climax? And he proved in this match that he absolutely is still on that level, if not even better and more motivated than he has ever been in the past. Ibushi, of course, a crazy man. A lot of crazy stuff having to do with his head and neck. At one point, he was on the outside. He was draped over the guardrail, and KENTA, who was on the ring apron, he ran off and hit a diving foot stomp onto the back of Kota Ibushi's neck and shoulders and back and head area and all that kind of stuff while he was still draped over the guardrail. So Ibushi just loves playing around with that damn neck. But yeah, so a lot of the rest of the match was just a lot of great back and forth action. Of course, Ibushi ended up hitting his last ride powerbomb on KENTA at one point. KENTA managed to kick out of that. Speaking of kicks, that was not a segue, but speaking of kicks, KENTA, just some vicious kicks, devastating ones he hit on Ibushi at several points in the match, but it was in the end. He did pull out the GTS, the go to sleep, hit it right square on Kota Ibushi. He went down and got the 1, 2, 3. So I expected KENTA to get the big win in this match, and he did that. After the match, he showed his respect to Kota Ibushi. He helped him up. He gave him a hug, showed him his respect and all that kind of stuff. So there's respect there between the two guys, but it was Kenta who got the big win here. And this just tells me, not that it was really any big teaser for me, but I predicted a long time ago that my expectation is that Kota Ibushi will be the winner of the A block and will go on to win the entire G1. It's going to come down to either himself and Naito or himself and Jay White. And seeing as how him and Naito are kind of locked up, one win apiece in their rivalry they've had this year for the Intercontinental Championship, it makes sense that it will come down to the two of them. Either way, I expect Ibushi to be in the finals and win the entire thing and go on to Wrestle Kingdom 14 to challenge Okada and beat him for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. So Kota Ibushi has been my pick for months now, and I'm still gonna go strong and go with him. And I mentioned Okada. That leads me to the main event: Hiroshi, Tanahashi, and Okada. Like I said, for the very first time in the United States, one of the greatest wrestling rivalries of all time came over to the United States in the main event of this opening night of the G1 Climax, a match that's usually been reserved for the final match of whatever block they're in, whether it's A or B. So really cool that they were here in the main event spot of the opening night. And like you'd expect, Okada and Tanahashi, it was a great match. I believe they mentioned on commentary that the last 3 times these guys have had a match in the G1, it has ended in a draw. So thankfully, we did not get a draw to close out this show. We got a decisive winner, so that was great. And like I said, the match was great. It was everything that you would expect in a match between Tanahashi and Okada. A bunch of rainmakers, tombstone pile drivers, high fly flows, twists and shouts, sling blades, all the normal stuff, the dragon screws, all the normal stuff that you expect out of Tanahashi's arsenal and Okada's arsenal. Nothing, they weren't reinventing the wheel here. They were kind of, a standard Okada-Tanahashi match, and that's not to say it was bad at all. It was great. Like every match I've ever seen these guys have, it has been. I have never seen them have a bad match ever, and it's hard to say that about a lot of different opponents who have faced each other multiple times throughout years and years. So it was a great match, but in the end, it was Tanahashi had Okada down, so he bounced off the ropes, and he went for, I guess he was going for a sling blade or something like that, but it was Okada who ended up picking him up, hit him with the jumping, spinning tombstone, got him with the Rainmaker, and got the big win. So Okada gets the win here in the main event on an overall great show. And then he did his post-match sign-off for the crowd and all that kind of stuff, saying, like, we enjoyed being in Dallas and hope we'll be coming back at some point. Hopefully when they do, they actually sell out the entire arena. That'd be nice. But, yeah, still, really good show. I enjoyed it. So, the B block starts next week, and then we got the rest of the G1 from there. I plan on following it very closely. I'll try to review as much of it as I can. I cannot promise, like, a review of every single match that happens in the G1, because that's just not practical. So we'll see. I'll try to get a review of the B block next week, and I'll definitely do one for the finals when that comes up. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's the best wrestling tournament in the world, and it's gonna be great. So that's about it for me. That about covers it. So take care, enjoy the rest of your evening or morning or whenever the hell you're listening to this, and hope you enjoyed the first night of the G1, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the tournament. So until next time, take care, everybody.